Let's move on. Mary Holm is in. Hi.
Hi, Jesse.
Nice to see you.
You too.
Okay,
Yeah.
we've got lots to get through as well. First of all,
Yes.
I'll mention, by the way, if you're in the Wairarapa, Mary's doing a free talk for the public in Caterton next Thursday, August 4th at 10 a.m. And that's run by Wairarapa Word, and it's in the Caterton Event Centre. There's room for a few, but it's first come, first serve. So that's stories from a financial agony aunt. Don't know if I like referring to you as an agony aunt.
I love being called
Do
an
you?
agony aunt. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine then. So that's for the people of Wairarapa. Before your regular topic today, I wanted to share a text with you that came in. It says, and it just came in today, and I thought we'd give it your urgent attention. I'm embarrassed about something that I'd like to check out with Mary Holm today if I can. I saw an article in the New Zealand Herald about a Bitcoin scheme saying that China had issued their first Bitcoin and was offering entry for New Zealanders at a good price. I joined and paid $250, and the next day I got a follow-up phone call from a firm with a mentor to help me negotiate and trade in the world market. It looks kosher, but I'm scared I've done something silly. It has a security code and a password known only to me. Please, Mary, what should I do?
Nothing. Nothing with these people. It smells awfully fishy to me, doesn't it, you, Jesse? Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about this Chinese Bitcoin, but it kind of feels unlikely. And the first thing you've got to think about is going and putting money into an investment. What am I investing in, and how is this going to grow wealth? You know, if it's shares in a company, the company's growing and your wealth's growing with it. But what's going on here? It smells very fishy.
Yeah.
I would just say don't do anything more with them.
Okay, and if they call you back and try and convince you?
Hang up.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. But don't forget well, actually, she's invited them to call her, hasn't she? So it isn't a cold call. But nonetheless, it sounds very dodgy to me.
Yeah. The other thing I would just add, you're the expert on money, but I would just say that sometimes it seems very similar to a New Zealand Herald or a legitimate paper site.
Yes.
When an ad comes up on your
Yes.
internet browser, it looks like you're going through to the newspaper, but often it's just a trick that they use.
Yeah, there's some really horrible, tricky stuff that goes on on the internet these days. Stick with rock solid investments, everybody.
I guess she'll be wanting to get her $250 back, or
Has she really put it in?
Yeah.
Oh, has she? Oh gosh, yes. Well, yes, I would try your darndest to get it back. Yeah.
Unlikely that if it is a scam, they will be happy with $250 though, right?
Yeah, they're sure. What will probably happen is that the 250 will do well in quotes, and her 250 will turn into 500 or something.
Well, that's when she takes it out, right?
Yeah, yes, if she can at that point. Though
Yeah.
that it's often not easy. And the trouble is then people say, "Oh, I can double my money in 2 days here," and then you start putting serious money in, and then it goes down a black hole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hope that is suitable from Mary, suitable thoughts on that from Mary. Now, let's go to this week's topic. And you might wonder, what does Mary Holm do when she's not on the radio with Jesse? Well, this morning she was at a Financial Services Council Summit.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I was playing reporter again. I mean, for years I was a newspaper reporter, and today I was actually along at a conference covering it. What the Financial Services Council is an organisation. The members are people in the finance industry, banks and Kiwisaver providers and all sorts of people like that. And they were challenged by the Retirement Commissioner, Jane Wrightson, a while back to do something about the fact that women are not as well off as men, basically. And I wanted to just tell you about one particular session that I thought was really good, where they were talking about the gender retirement gap. Now, there were a whole lot of statistics said this morning, and I'll just give you just one, that women tend to retire with 20% less than men, which is a pretty big gap. And reasons for that, some of them are fairly obvious. Christina Lang from NZIR, the economics research outfit, says labour force participation, women are still doing less of that than men. Pay gaps, career gaps, because women are taking time out from the workforce more than men to look after children and to look after elderly parents. Sometimes it's men, but more often it's women. Differences in confidence and knowledge, which were two different things, in financial confidence. And so, for example, if a woman's in Kiwisaver, she might be in a conservative fund, whereas a man might be more inclined to be in a growth fund. And over a lifetime, they say that can make $300,000 difference in how much you get out in retirement. One of the people there said there's a lack of awareness by a lot of women of the consequences of their choices to go into lower risk Kiwisaver funds. They think, oh, it'll wobble around less, I'll feel safer like that. And that's true, but it does mean that in the long run they get less growth. The higher risk funds grow more. So Jane Wrightson, the Retirement Commissioner, also mentioned poorer access to education. This is what research has shown, that women have tended to have poorer access to education. What we've got to think about with this too is it's not all about what's happening in 2022.
Yeah.
It's all, we're looking at women who are coming into retirement, and so for some of them, that different access to education happened decades ago.
Yeah.
Putting family first, the tendency for women to put their family first. So I was just sort of looking through my notes, and I thought there were basically three different areas where action was suggested about this, because that was a real emphasis of this talk. We've had enough talk about this, about women doing worse than men financially. We've been talking about that for decades. We've got to have something happening.
Yeah.
A couple of suggestions for government, things the government could do. Quite simply, one person said that they could just make bigger government contributions to Kiwisaver for women, which would, I can't imagine.
An audacious election policy.
It would. I can't imagine that happening. Or giving them bigger New Zealand super payments. There are people who argue that women tend to get more from New Zealand super anyway because they tend to live longer. And so they get it for more years. But there's also proposals around for universal carer payments, which are payments to people who are out of the workforce looking after children or elderly or people with disabilities.
It's an interesting idea, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
A little bit like a universal basic income, but
That's right.
targeted at people who are caring.
Yeah.
And that is, underpaid, underappreciated, and yet contributes so much to the New Zealand economy,
That's right? To the New Zealand
Who looks after
economy
the kids so the man can go to work and do whatever he's doing in a lot of cases.
In a lot of cases, yes. And it isn't just the New Zealand economy, it's just the New Zealanders' well-being and altogether, If you were looking after an elderly person, it might not be doing a lot economically, but it's doing a heck of a lot for just making New Zealanders better off as a whole. And so all of that's interesting. There's another one here. One of the guys there pointed out, because there were some men there weren't many. It was a bit of a change, because at this conference about 10% of the people there were men. Which was quite a nice change from usual. That in the UK, this is what Hugh Stevens from SmartShares was saying, they set up compulsory super schemes in the private sector, made it compulsory for people to be in these schemes. And that meant that the retirement gap between men and women diminished a whole lot, because the women had to be in the scheme, and whereas apparently before that quite a few of them weren't very fully involved. So that was something to think about. Employers were being urged by quite a few different people to continue their contributions to Kiwisaver for people who are on parental leave.
Yeah.
And one suggestion was Pushpa Wood, who's with Massey University. She said, rather than just saying to employers, continue that pay while the person's on leave, go to them and say, could you perhaps continue to do 20 or 25% of the work you're doing now while you're on leave? We could negotiate some particular part of your current job that you continue to do while you're on leave, and
Even if you're just monitoring the company inbox, for example,
Yeah.
replying to things within 24 hours,
that's right.
it might be
yes.
achievable.
Yeah, something like that that's quite flexible. And in exchange for that, we'll continue your KiwiSaver contributions while you're on parental leave. So that's a sort of win-win
How much
sort
would
of
the
idea.
KiwiSaver contribute? It's only 3 cents in the dollar or something, isn't it? 4 cents?
Yes, 3%.
Yeah.
So you'd want it to be 3% of their pay before they go on the leave. You'd want to
Yeah.
continue it to be 3% of that, not, they're only working 20% of the time, so they would drop down to 20% of their pay.
That wouldn't be too much, would it?
No, it wouldn't. I agree. I think, there are ways that...
If you earned $100,000 a year, that'd be
Yes.
$1,500 over 6 months.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it's not a heck of a lot. And then it enables the person to get the government contribution too, because they're continuing to put into KiwiSaver. So that's the sort of thing that could make quite a big difference. And some people, usually women, are taking several years out too with little children. It's not just the 6 months. So that's where they can make a big difference to their KiwiSaver totals in the end. There was a lot of emphasis on the gender pay gap. That expression kept coming up. The research that's found that it's not just that women tend to have lower average education or work fewer hours, and when you allow for all of that, there still is a pay gap where women are tending to get less than men. And one person said, look, any individual employer, a lot of them will say, oh no, that doesn't happen in my workplace. But the overall data shows that it does happen. And so they're challenging employers to look more closely at what's really going on in their workplace. And
that does seem to be changing in big organisations.
yes, it is. And that was
They're reporting
acknowledged.
it.
Yeah, there's a lot of these things are sort of happening, but it'd be good if they happened faster, really. So that was a challenge to employers. Then the financial industry itself, one person was pointing out the importance of giving positive messages out there to people in KiwiSaver and in other financial respects, rather than negative messages, because people respond much better to being told stories of people who've done well with their finances, etc., rather than saying, if you stay in the low risk scheme, you'll end up with less money. That doesn't work very well. You want more positive stuff. And the financial industry being told to fix up its financial language, really, to use much simpler terms.
Yeah.
Just say to people, we're just talking about money here. We're not talking about complicated thises and that's and average thises and that's. And finally, one of the KiwiSaver providers said that the providers, when they're talking to one another, are talking about who's performed better, whose funds have earned higher percentage returns. He said it would be much better if we looked at member outcomes, if we were competing for member outcomes, female and male, but we're just sort of looking at typical outcomes of people in our funds rather than just looking at the returns in themselves, because then that takes into account getting people into the right risk level for them and encouraging them to continue contributing.
No point if your growth fund is returning 12% if half the people in there shouldn't be in there.
Yeah.
Or same with the conservative fund.
Same
right?
with the low risk ones. Yes.
That's very interesting.
So
just hearing you talk about that, it made me wonder if big organisations in particular should have someone whose job it is just to sit down with each employee once a year and say, hey, what's your KiwiSaver situation?
Wouldn't that be great? And it wouldn't.
I don't know if it's a job of your employer or not, but I think that's what most people need and want, right? If they know nothing, they want a trusted person to come and answer some questions.
It's a really good idea, that actually, yes. And don't speak the jargon. Just say, look, what KiwiSaver fund are you in? Are you contributing, number one, because there's a hell of a lot of people who aren't. And could you contribute a bit more, perhaps? How are you feeling about where you're heading towards retirement?
Yeah.
Because it would probably only take sort of 15 minutes, half an hour per person. Some of them less. Some of them would say, look, it's all under control, I'm fine.
Or half an hour when you join the firm and kind of 10, 15 minutes each year after that.
Yeah, it'd be terrific, wouldn't it? Yeah,
I guess the question is how they pay for themselves. But
Yes. I mean, possibly providers could be doing more of that too, although the good thing about employers doing it is it's people you know and trust, and you might feel a bit less embarrassed by saying, I don't know what you're talking about.
And also providers have skin in the game too.
Yes, they absolutely do. But providers, they've been handed so many good profits out of Kiwisaver. I mean, when you look at the companies they were offering managed funds before Kiwisaver came along, they've just done so much better since then. Because of Kiwisaver, because the government set up the scheme and is contributing to it, and employers are contributing to it. And so the providers, I think, they're not reducing their fees as fast as they should, and it would be really good if some of them were somehow or other getting these conversations going more as well. Yeah.
Okay, before you go, I was just
Yes.
Googling something while you were chatting about there, and that potential scam that we talked about
Yes.
at the beginning of our conversation. I've just looked up the name of that purported Bitcoin scheme on Google, and the first result is their website, and the second result is the Financial Markets Authority, which is a New Zealand government organisation. And if you click on that, it says that they've issued a warning about this firm.
Ooh.
We're concerned that this group and the websites attached to them may be operating a scam. They are advertising fake news with fake news articles featuring a New Zealand celebrity. It's not a product that's available for trading, and they are
Wow.
not permitted to provide financial services in New Zealand. So it's a very clear answer to
It's
it.
very clear. And the message from that is for everyone to do what you just did, simply Google their name. And actually, it's quite good also to Google their name and Google scam with it, because then you're more likely to come up with that sort of stuff. But when the Financial Markets Authority is saying that, well, stay right away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mary, great to have you in. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jesse.
Just a reminder, Mary's in Caterton next Thursday morning at the Caterton Event Centre, and it's free if you'd like to go along and have an audience in person, something I'm lucky enough to do every fortnight on a Thursday afternoon. You can listen to our previous conversations on our website on the podcasts page, and we've covered all sorts of different money topics over the years.